do the
guess
intro.
I am the starter, right? Because it's my book.
Yes, you're the starter, so go for it.
I'm a very bad starter because I don't even have the book with me. I could show you volume 2. I have that with me. I am in. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. I am in the she shed, and the book is in the house, and that is why we are separate. Meredith, could you please
wait a minute, before you start, by the way, a she shed is like super trend in design right now. So just so you know.
What's it like a man cave?
You're ahead of the game.
It's my own space. How novel.
I love that.
Oh,
love it.
You want me to hold this up?
Yes, I do, because I also want you to actually tell me what happens after I say testicle. And what I mean is continue reading, because I don't have the authors memorized. And so my story, or my book that I chose, was Mischief Eagle Testicle, Volume 1. It's Kent Monkman, and I don't know the other author. That's my problem.
A true and exact accounting of the history of Turtle Island, but it has North America crossed out. Kent Monkman and Gisèle Gordon.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Gisèle.
Right?
I could remember the Kent part, but not the Gisèle. Anyway, so that's the story I picked without knowing anything. And our topic, our season's, I was going to say our season's spirit. The spirit of this season is strong women. It is, right?
Absolutely.
Like, it's the essence of season 5.
Can I tell you what I decided on as a theme? Like the
actual name? Yes.
Yeah. For women, by women, about women.
Oh, okay. For women, by women, about women. Okay. So I think that it's nice. Okay. And I think that my choice then barely qualifies.
Why?
Well, because
I
even folded pages in my book. Like, I really should have brought my book. So unprepared for this podcast.
I have a couple things.
There's a full statement of
that's true, but I'm not a woman.
Yeah, Mischief being like, I'm not a woman, I am everything. Like, I love women, but I am not that.
Yeah,
I'm all genders and whatever, which is great. But I get like a little bit rigid, right? So in this theme, I'm like, well, that's not.
Well,
right.
it's by a woman.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's how I'm barely hanging on. Thanks, Gisèle. Because otherwise, we're completely out of it. Because it's not really about women either.
Yeah, but that's kind of part of the conversation too, though, isn't it? Is that he's like, the settlers are like, there's only women and men, but don't understand there's an in between, and so now it opens the conversation. It's fine. It's a conversation starter, Kim. You're fine.
I also am gifted in arguing, so I know that there are points to be made for why this book does qualify. But on the surface, if you don't want to dig deep or get into these deeper conversations, it's like, wait, what? I just thought the name Miss Chief Eagle Testicle, right? Miss is where it was like a misnomer, I guess. I thought that automatically meant female. And it doesn't. But okay, so that aside, what do you want to talk about?
So I wanted to add to that. Do you remember in the book why her name was Miss Chief Eagle Testicle? Because
she was part of the creation story.
Mischief.
Yeah, you're mischief. You're a mischief. Stop touching my eagle testicle.
Yeah.
And he thought he was saying your name is Miss Chief Eagle Testicle.
Yeah.
I love that a lot because she's such a trickster, right? I really liked it.
So I would like to open the floor to other people's enjoyment or questions or whatever. So
I would like to bring something up.
Let's hear
it. So I actually went to a Kent Monkman exhibit at the ROM, the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto years ago. So it was actually really fun because I picked it up and I started reading. I was like, these look really familiar. So I texted my friend that I went. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's what we went and saw. So it was really, the paintings in huge format are just breathtaking. And I love, there's not a lot of them here, but those little, I forget what they're called, but the little creatures that are in some of them, they're like little, I don't know, little gnomes or something. Anyways, a lot of the paintings that I saw were, had all the little gnome stuff. Anyways, it was a really powerful exhibit too, because it talked about settlers and what they did to the land. But when we were doing our little text before, I was talking about all the images in the book because there's a ton of his paintings, and Sarah couldn't get the book, and so she had to listen to it by audiobook. So I thought, because there's so many words that I couldn't pronounce the way that, in English, so I think it really be interesting to hear from Sarah to see because she could actually hear the way that the words were supposed to be pronounced.
Yeah. I recommend the audiobook because, first of all, Miss Chief Testickle, the person doing the audiobook is a woman's voice that's doing her voice. And then also, so I'm always going to say her because I listen to it. So I don't know if when you're reading the book,
maybe them.
Right? Maybe. I love the audiobook because all the Cree words were spoken in Cree. And I know if I was physically reading the book, I would struggle to try to remember, and you know what I mean? Like it would stop me from reading. But I do regret, like I tried to go online to see some of the pictures. So I couldn't tell online what pictures and art were from one of his exhibits or what was from in the book. Okay, I thought that would probably be in the book because I'm like, that's clearly the scene where she's like, hey, hello. I like being human. Right,
I also read it on, I guess I listened to it as well. So I feel the same way, Sarah. Like I also kind of reading it, I'm like, to me, this feels female, I think specifically because of the voice. And so being totally honest here, I forgot that we moved it up a week. So I have not completed this book yet, but from what I have read, I agree with it was great through audiobook because I didn't have to try and pronounce those words, and I think it would have taken me out. But I do also feel like me and Sarah missed out because of in the audiobook we don't get those beautiful photos, right? Like, and again, you can look it up online, but it is different when you're reading it. You turn the page and there's this beautiful photo there.
Right, and like having it in your hands. I have something to say about the words too, though, because I didn't listen to the audio, but I think I would like to. But there's a couple things about the book. It's got like a glossary in the back. So when you're reading it, like it says the Cree word and it says the English translation, like before or after it.
Sometimes.
Some of the time.
Yeah, most of the time.
But it was very interesting because I tried to slow down and I don't know how to read the Cree language, how the letters or the accents or anything. But I was trying to make an effort to like read it and take my time because a lot of them are longer and I have trouble with those longer words, like just longer words in general. And I found that as I went, I was recognizing the words and then I didn't need to be like, oh, what is that in the glossary? So I started like learning the words, which I kind of liked. I was like, this is great. Like if more long books had that, you would slowly, because you don't even notice it's happening. I was stopped because like, like with names, like if I read a book like by Tolstoy or whatever, the names are all super long Russian names and I just skip over them, right? Usually like a lot of times when I'm reading with names, I just skip over them. Like, I don't know about that name. But here, like, because I took the time to like read these longer words I did not recognize or know how to pronounce, it like I was picking it up. So it was kind of cool. So then part of me wonders, like, down the road, if I hear these words or read these words again, if I'll still remember. I'm like, oh, that means beaver, that means buffalo, or whatever. Or that means the people who live.
That's
right?
So cool.
The people who live. So anyway, I love the glossary in the back. I was well, also the references in the back. That's a different story. But it was very interesting. And the fact that in the book, Sarah and Ashley, the Cree words are in red. So they really stand out. So you can go back to the glossary, read it, and then easily find your spot again back in the text. And I'd also like, I don't know, kind of accentuates the word even more. So it makes it stand out. I liked it. I liked how it was handled.
I had a similar experience to Mare. Like I started knowing that word meant whatever. And that was nice, right? Because it's It's funny how you can learn stuff, right? But it's funny about what you're saying too, because I do the same thing with names in books. Like that's one of the reasons why I stopped reading Mists of Avalon, because it has a bunch of crazy, like, I don't know, Game of Thronesy type names, you know what I mean? Which it's like, I'm not here for this. And then I just stop because like I'm like, I don't know who is who anymore, because I'm not reading these names because they're all ridiculous. Which is a terrible thing for me to say, because who's to decide? Maybe Kim is ridiculous too. Easy to remember.
Easy to read though. Very short.
Yeah.
Book interrupted. And I just needed to share with you, it's a full circle back to Jessie Thistle's From the Ashes, and to They Called Me Number One. I've been reflecting on that all day because I'm taking an Indigenous Wisdoms course. And here's the big thing that I needed to share in case you guys weren't aware. I absolutely wasn't. Did you know that in Canada, with the Indian Act, which is still a legal document, that if you're an Indigenous person and you register to get your Indian status card, that when you die, even if you have a will, like a legal will, that you made with a lawyer and you leave certain assets to certain people, that because you have your Indian status card, according to the Indian Act, guess who becomes power of attorney? The Crown. The Crown becomes power of attorney and has the authority and quote unquote rights, the ability to seize all of the assets. All of them. They just don't happen to practice it often. But that thread is just, out there. Yeah, couldn't believe it. Let me know if you guys have heard anything of this. I'm just flabbergasted and angry and flabbergasted. Like, seriously, power of attorney to the government?
Book interrupted.
This probably requires more development, like in my brain, but I read, I don't know if it was a review or like, a meta explanation about like what the book's supposed to be. Like, it was important to the authors to give the perspective of Indigenous people during contact, because there's not a lot of literature out there or any other thing that really gives their perspective until, like, I don't know, the Truth and Reconciliation. Like nobody asked, nobody cared, nobody's recording because everybody's like settling, right? And so I really like that perspective, because I think it helps someone who, doesn't understand, better understand how, everyone's your relative, and like everything has a spirit, and like even just artifacts and why they're sacred and how they're supposed to be treated, right? Like nobody would consider you're supposed to wrap this pipe up. You're not supposed to put it in a little glass box and show it off. Like it needs to be, treated with ceremony. All of those pieces, I think they really, like the way that the story was told, it helps land an understanding of someone who wouldn't have any of that knowledge, but for looking for it, you know what I mean? And then I also thought, this is the unformed thought. I don't have a lot of, like knowledge and awareness around LGBTQ, etc., culture, for lack of a better word, right? So maybe this is just par for the course. Like I wouldn't know, but it was kind of like, it seemed hypersexual to me. And so maybe that's just mischief. Maybe that's LGBT. Like, I don't know where, right? Like whatever. And that's fine. Like it was entertaining. Like when Mischief was having like a full blown relationship with the prince, I was like, oh my God, like scandalous, like whatever. But what I also kind of like, and I don't know if this is intentional or not, but it made me think, right? Like for so long, the retelling of history has been whitewashed and it's, completely whatever, not necessarily true. It's, everybody's version of whoever had power. And so I feel like this is a little bit taking the piss You know what I mean? Like, I think it would, if I don't know, if you were to get friggin' John A. McDonald today, and you know, he would be horrified to find out that men were sleeping with men or whatever, right? Like, I feel like the way that the story is being told is not only just a different point of view, but also meant to be like, I don't want to say like embarrassing, but meant to be upsetting in some way, shape, or form, because it's like, and also true, right? Because we all know that gender is on a spectrum, and there's homosexuality, for one example, has existed forever. And, you know, and so to hear that perspective on that piece of the story, I thought was interesting. Again, unformed. So open floor, like, please build upon what I'm saying.
So just from kind of some of the knowledge that I have, and I noticed it was also very hypersexual, just even from the get-go, from the small parts that like I've read. I think that is very true to traditional values for Indigenous people. A lot of retellings too were from Eurocentric people have been said like Indigenous people are savages, and part of that is they coexisted in the sense that they're sleeping with each other. It's a community thing. It's very open. And so I do think that would like that also shows, I think, the stark contrast of the settlers coming in and making it so black and white, and kind of demonizing this sleeping together with other men, other women, you know, like your community. And I think it kind of just shows like how much that was taken away too. Like it felt very, it seems like it felt more free, and people were so much more accepting. And then, you know, first contact comes in, everyone's settling and merging together, and that really gets taken away and like demonized, where it's like it's gross, right? And then the term savages comes along, and now we have this whole history written about how Indigenous people are savages, when it's, you know, you came to them with your values. Yeah.
Like I feel like the closest thing we can relate it to is like hippies, you know what I mean, like love and peace and whatever. And it like that
Totally.
that in that way I can understand it as a white set, like, oh, okay, like I get that vibe, you know.
Yeah.
I liked in the book. I liked in the book how she was like noticing that, saying stuff like, "Oh, they have so much shame around pleasure. Like, why?"
And being themselves, they have to hide themselves.
Like
they're like children.
Why,
they don't
why
know.
life is amazing, having this amazing pleasure with our bodies. Like, why are they so ashamed of it? Like,
yeah,
I thought that was
with everyone and everything, right? Like you can really derive pleasure from anything, and it right, and it really, like you're saying, like the shame aspect there, it's like they really put that onto Indigenous people to feel so ashamed of what they have grown up for centuries with, right? Like that's so normal to them.
I think too, what part of what like Kim's talking about is it made me think of the book Braiding Sweetgrass. And in the book, the author is trying to learn, I don't know how to say it, Potawatomi. And she says it's really hard because there's a lot of humor built into the language. And okay, this is a quote because I wrote it down because it was so good. She goes, "Even a small slip of the tongue can convert, 'We need more firewood to take off your clothes.'" So there's like, she was saying that like in the book of Braiding Sweetgrass, she said in a lot of like Indigenous languages, there's like humor kind of built in so that you can laugh about the like things like sexual things too, right? So she's like, there's a lot of laughter and joy, and that's part of what Miss Chief is talking about. And like, I think that's like, I mean, that's what the title is all about, is like, it's a play on mischief, and it's laughing about sexuality and like things that are so normal to everybody and can be hilarious. Like when they're like, when Miss Chief gets a big hug and then they fart and everyone's laughing. It's just like, this is like, it's easy. It doesn't have to be, these things that happen to everybody don't have to be embarrassing, right? It's nice. I don't know. So it was a very strange book. I think it seems strange to me because I'm like, this is a great history book, And there's a lot of dicks, right? And dicking. I talked about like my husband's asked me about it. I'm like, it's great, and there's a lot of dicks and dicking, and I think part of that is like the education of the reader to that idea that like we can have fun, we can talk about things that are upsetting and have fun with it too, and still like laughter and making like it's kind of making fun of like ridiculousness and like how people were hiding, so shameful and hiding their shame, but really it's because they're so repressed, they're taking out on others. Like it's got layers, right? And so it's a funny book. Like I think it's supposed to make you laugh and see the absurdity of some things, but also teach you something. I don't know. It's like I don't know how to tell people about this book.
Right.
Right?
I feel like it's very true to Indigenous people, like people on like my friends and their families on the reserve in Penticton. I'm just thinking, you know, so my family is Indigenous, but I was raised very white. So I have a lot of shame around a lot of things. One of them, like, I used to be very ashamed of kind of like sexual things, but I'm so open about it now. And I think part of that is just I go to the reserve and I'm talking to these family people I don't even know, just so open, always laughing, like even in serious moments, you know, people will say their thoughts, their feelings, and it always ends in a joke. You know, so even the serious things, it doesn't feel as serious. And yeah, so that's kind of the vibe I was getting from the book. I'm like, man, this feels like going to the res and just having like a good old laugh with everyone, you know, like trying to talk about all these stories and stuff from our perspectives. That's what it reminded me of reading part of it.
Cool.
I'm happy. Like, and I like, so as a curious person who wants to learn more about authentic indigeneity, right? Like, because it's so hard as the whitewashed history goes. I love getting to have the experience, feeling my own repression, like while I'm reading it and being like, is this weird, or am I
weird?
Well, not even weird, but do I need to open my mind even more? Like I thought I was wide open, but there's a whole category here that I'm like rubbing up against in a like a moral.
Well, I don't
like,
know,
right
rubbing up against.
I know.
Oh, you're really catching
a lot
on.
of rubbing up against a lot of things.
There's a whole category
like
I'm rubbing up against, and I'm loving it. Like,
I love the
thank you,
picture of
Miss
the
Chief
goose.
You're
Eagle
really
Testickle.
embracing the new the book.
So that's what's
Literally.
that's funny because it like highlights my like, for lack of a better word, like white eyes as I read and understand this text, and I'm like, ooh, and I have the feelings that have been embedded into me. And even just like 10 minutes ago, I'm like, I don't know if they're mocking us or what's going on, right? But like, really, it's just a completely different perspective that for centuries now has been like you said, Ashley, demonized, right? So I love that, actually. Like, it made like just even this conversation, I'm like, yes, I love this book even more now. Like,
and mocking doesn't have to be like a aggressive thing. Mocking can be fun if everyone's mocking everybody. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be about like, oh, I'm gonna make you look bad. It's just like mocking can be just fun, just like living life and laughing.
I think you have to be able to laugh at yourself. Like, I feel like that's a life skill.
But it's the whole trickster thing, right? It's the whole trickster thing. Like, she's a trickster, and the trickster, that's what it's about. Like, playing tricks that it doesn't have to be negative. It's just
teaches a lesson, I think, too.
Yeah. I've noticed too. So I lived in Ontario. I moved to Penticton in 2009, and once I started becoming closer with people on the reserve here, I noticed like they made fun of me a lot, and I felt like I was like, are they bullying me? You know, like I really wasn't sure. But I realized like that's them kind of accepting you. Like that's them saying, hey, I'm comfortable enough with you. And it is all jokes, right? Like we do really razz each other up, and it's just supposed to be like a funny thing, like, and again, not to take everything so seriously. type of deal. Like, it's like, yes, this is a big deal, but also it's kind of funny, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like Kim in the fact that my mind's pretty open, but I was uncomfortable in a few moments of this book because of, what I bring. Like when Miss Chief was eating out the bear, that I was like, this is really uncomfortable to me right now. But I kept reading, and like I found it, very like I was just like, oh, there's more sex. Okay, oh, there's more, dicks and balls and all that. Oh, more. Oh, they're all having sex all of the time, which I found like I found it. I mean, I liked reading it. I thought it was interesting, but I also just recognized that I felt uncomfortable in a lot. And my mother-in-law, she's like, oh, should I read that book? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. I was like, you can look it. So I gave it to her, and because I was reading it over New Year's when I was with her in Montreal, and so I was like, well, you can look through it, and she's like, yeah, she's like, maybe that's not my kind of book. So, I mean, I don't know. You have to be open-minded to read the book.
I feel
Like,
like
you can say, do
absolutely.
you like history? Then
Yeah.
and are you okay with dicks? Because
Meredith
like,
is working on how she talks about the book. She's still practicing.
I'm
I'm
like-
going to recommend it to all mother-in-laws.
I've been
like
trying to
that standard
explain it
person.
to my
even-
husband.
Well, even more so right
The
now.
art
Like when
is
you just brought up
great.
that idea of like a mother-in-law being like, should I? And you're like, I don't know, because you're
Yeah.
aware. But now
Mhm.
I'm like, yes, you should. And let's see if you can get your own mind cracked open.
Yeah.
Or are you gonna go like, will your head explode? Let's see. Please enjoy.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Like, do you want to relearn history and
Yeah.
in a different context, right? Like, for so long, up
Right.
until really recently, we've only heard it from a Eurocentric point of view. So
And it was lies,
it
too.
is. Yeah, exactly right. Like, so much of it was lies. And I was also thinking, I wonder how interesting it would be, because I know so many people really kept journals back then, right? Like, they like to, oh, today was voyage day fucking 300. We saw a rock, whatever, right? So I don't know.
We saw a rock.
Yeah, like a cool rock. I would love
A
to
rock I've never seen before. It wasn't a cobblestone. It was something
Yeah.
else.
It was really big. Like, I don't know.
Totally.
I would love to see some side by side journal excerpts from like people, settlers who came, saw these artifacts, and like we were saying earlier, put them in a box, like to display, instead of really appreciating their ancestral and traditional values. I would love to read like excerpts from these people's journals saying like, oh, this is like this artifact and we're going to display it, and kind of their thought process versus like what the traditional value of it is. I just think it would be really interesting to see like,
Yeah.
like
Like
you
with
come
a
to a
picture.
place.
It's got a
Yes,
picture of
totally.
the thing, and it's got like
Mhm.
the settlers like interpretation and maybe a couple
Yes.
of them.
Yes.
And then it's got like an explanation below being like, okay, let's talk about
This
it
is
for
what it
real.
actually
What
is.
it
Yes,
actually
totally.
is. Yeah. That would be
exactly.
great.
The story like touched on that too, right? Like Miss Chief was getting annoyed. She's like, this guy drew this picture and it's got a little sample from over here and a little sample from over there. Like, that's not what we look like, but they're
Mhm.
creating this picture. And I think that I like that different perspective, because, and just to go back to what I said, like, it wasn't true too. I don't mean that Miss Chief's recounting isn't true. What I mean is the colonial history was like, I have an understanding that history is honest, and it was not honest. And so this is more honest. So like when I say two, I mean, not only was it terrible, but half of it was fucking made up to make it not look as terrible as it actually was. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the talk about, because the artifact talking about the different things, and it's like, oh, I want you to wear something authentic. I mean, that was also a play on the idea of shame and the having to be gendered. You should be ashamed if you're not gendered, if you're everything. And so it's like, not just like you should be dressed authentically. It's like, but I am authentic. What I'm doing here right now is I know how to be me, and you all don't know how to be you. Because if I offer you a good dickin', you're gonna jump on it. Literally.
Yeah.
Just say it.
Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't, right?
Who wouldn't?
Like
I
a good
felt
Dickens.
I felt
I think-
like, I don't know if you guys felt this way, so maybe not. So I said this in my personal journal, so I'm reading, but I want to get your opinions on it. Because I feel like, so when I first started the book, there was lots of sex. And at first I was like, oh, there is a lot of sex in here. But then I just got used to it. It was just part of the story. Like I didn't feel uncomfortable at all. I was just like, of course, that's how she's going to use her sexuality to try to give these settlers information they need to know about the way the world actually works, like the commitment you made to the earth, the commitment you made to the creatures on the earth, and everything's connected. Like she's going to use it, her sexuality, to be able to teach them, because that's how she can get to them. And then, so I didn't really, I just thought like, of course.
Not even
By the
that's
end, I
how
was
she
like,
can
yes,
get
of
to them,
course,
but
she's gonna
also
sleep with
like
that guy.
that in and
And
of
this
itself is an
guy.
example of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like she's walking the walk. Like it's not only a tool to like entice people to come and learn, but it's actually a literal lesson in it, in the very thing she's
Yes.
trying to teach.
She's trying to broaden their minds and their bodies, like release them, like actually release them so they can hear and see what they need to learn. And she just hopes that it worked.
I think it's supposed to be a bit of a transformation too. So at the beginning, if like, you know, a lot of us were feeling uncomfortable with all the sexuality, and then as you go, it's like the sexual scenes are used to actually break the tension of some really terrible things, right? And so instead, the sex was to make you feel more comfortable.
Ironically.
Well, you know, and so it's like you don't even realize it's happening while you're reading the book, but you, the reader, is being educated in the way to not be ashamed of yourself and sexuality, but in fact to use those things to bring light to like get through hard ideas and hard times and stuff, right? So you're the author's actually taking you on a journey, and Mischief as a book is doing what Mischief in here is trying to do, is trying to educate the settlers by using her powers of seduction and love.
Just
Love for
authenticity.
all. Yeah, and authenticity. Anyway, it's interesting. I like when books do what they are describing to do to the people in the story. You know what I mean? Like when
an additional meta experience.
they make you feel,
Yeah.
meta experience.
Yeah,
It's good. Because
we're going
near the
into-
end, it's like, oh, and then there's another. Of course, there's going to be some head or something you're at right now, and now everyone's going to
And why
have sex with
wouldn't there
bears.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm I think it's also interesting that you know, these settlers came and they're so disgusted and so ashamed and awkward about all the different kind, like, you know, the genders and the sexuality, when I'm sure that was also happening in Europe. But because of all the shame and stuff, you know, it was probably so suppressed. Again, I'm not too sure. I don't know that history very well. But just the general knowledge that I have, like it's always just been so taboo, right? So and illegal in so many places for so long. So it's so interesting to come to a place that's so open about it, and still, you know, be so disgusted, and it's like that's not right. It's so black and white, and it's like you don't even realize how many people back home are gay, lesbian, are transgender, like, you know, you really don't know. And to put this black and white onto other people because you're uncomfortable is so true telling. You know,
It's terrible too, because like to put it onto other people, like why do you get to decide, whoever you are, right? The proverbial you, who decided that, right?
I like
who
that
why do
decided
they
that?
get to
compare-
decide?
Yeah.
I like that they like to compare the English and the settlers to children, because in a way that's kind of what a child does. Like you just a child, it's part of a developmental thing where you grow up and you think everyone's experienced the same thing, and then one day you realize that that person thinks different than me. Like that's a big deal, right? Like theory of mind, being like, I know that that person knows what I know, or those ideas. And then it's almost like, you know, so not getting past that, being like, oh, I know that that person is different and thinks differently than me. It's I like the idea being like they're like children, because I think a lot these days, I think that feeling is becoming more common as well. Like, you know, the idea that there's these people in power and they get to decide whatever, and we watch these billionaires or people who are in a great places of great power acting like children for what? To get more money, to get more power or whatever. And I think there's a lot of people that can really understand where this is coming from, where the narrative's coming from, being like, yeah, it does feel like, why do you need more than you need? I don't know.
When you already have so much.
Yeah.
Like you're just taking to give to yourself and no one else.
You know, would I ever be a billionaire? I don't think I could ever, because before that happened, in order to become a billionaire, you have to hold on to stuff. And once you have way more than you need, would you keep holding on to it? I don't know. Some people wouldn't, some people wouldn't.
I found it, yeah, when Mischief would walk by and see, when they went to Europe and
London.
then would see somebody who was, you know, homeless, obviously, or in need on the street, and saying, well, why are these people who have all this not helping this person? Like, why does, if, you know, in our culture, if someone was like that, you would help them and everybody would have enough. And I think that's the same thought that really, I mean, in Toronto all the time, there's people that are homeless or on the street or, you know, walking, and you think, why do some people have so much and some people have nothing? And if we all just shared, we'd all be fine and happy. And
why are some people so unhappy with excess amount of wealth, excess amount of everything? And then you have people who are living on the streets and are so happy with the bare minimum, literally just anything to survive. So, you know, there's also this discourse of like, how do we get these people that are so greedy? And how do we get these people that are so happy with nothing? Like, they're just so opposite, right? And it, you know, I'm obviously a lot of it is how you're raised, how you're grown up, and the people you surround yourself with. But, you know, it would be so interesting to me, these billionaires, millionaires, like, if you're on the streets for a couple of years, you don't have any money. I just would love to see if their perspectives would change, or if they'd be like, no, I gotta rebuild. We're getting the power, we're getting the money, we're getting it all back, you know? Or if they would just be like, wow, I do really appreciate like new clothes and a dry bed.
You want like Trading Places. That's a movie.
I would love it.
/ Undercover Boss.
Oh, yes, totally. Yeah. Yes, but with the people, I want the president on the streets.
Yeah, exactly. But with Jeff Bezos, right?
Yes.
Like, or with
yes. Like some Hunger Games type thing on the streets.
100%.
Oh my gosh, back to the Hunger Games again, Ashley. Always about the Hunger Games.
It's the Hunger Games or Twilight. Come on.
Yeah. I was just gonna say it wouldn't be an episode without
either or.
What I'd like to see is a Hunger Games Twilight mashup.
Ooh.
Like, can somebody combine those movies? Wow. That would be ridiculous.
Oh,
just
yeah.
like as a short cartoony type thing.
A short cartoony.
Yeah. Just a short series, 1 season, 8 episodes. That's it.
Limited.
Yeah, limited series.
Fires going around trying to kill each other, and you're like, I'm immortal.
It's kind of like what Twilight is. Twilight is like a low-key Hunger Games between wolves and vampires and other vampires.
Oh, absolutely.
Lots of wolves and vampires taking their shirts off.
Definitely those wolves.
So the wolves reminds me,
actually, and the vampires, because they're sparkly, right? So we get to see that in its full sparkly.
If I was sparkly, I'd be taking my top off all the time too.
Like they glitter.
So like
have your
their
blue
glitter is
glittering
beautiful.
and
oh yeah, like I'd be
that
like,
can happen. You can just buy glitter at the store.
Oh
that can happen. You can make that dream come true. You don't have to be a vampire. You see
someone around BC without a top glittering, it's me.
And maybe others.
Yeah,
like, I bet
maybe
not
me. Join you. Me and Ashley would be covered in glitter naked on the road.
International.
I don't think that'd be okay in Senegal. I don't know. I think you may get arrested.
No. I would be in support of you from here.
I would support you from here.
Yeah. I have to go to Canada, be topless in public with the glitter all over me.
Yeah. I like how you shake your shoulders like this so people can see you shimmer.
I would. That's what it means for the sunlight.
Is that what they do in
No,
Twilight?
in
They
Twilight,
go like
no.
this?
Edward.
Yes, they don't do that. They're not proud of shining. They're not happy about it.
Oh, they don't like it.
They
Well,
don't like
It
it.
just reveals who they are.
Miss Chief could teach them something,
Mm.
right?
Absolutely, some acceptance.
Way to
Yeah,
bring it
it's
back
their
around
authentic
there.
self.
Well done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kim has volume 2, so tell us about volume 2 because you just said
Well,
you have it. In your
Okay,
hand.
so I think that traditionally, I don't know if I can't reach it. Give me 1 sec. I gotta take out my earbuds.
While she's gone, I'm going to say one thing about the end of this book is that it ends on the birth of Canada, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Like that's
cool.
where
say it doesn't
volume 1
That's
ends.
cool.
I'm just going to read the last line. Is that ruining the book for everybody? I don't think so.
No.
It says, I'd used up all my patience. It was time to move on. Us Atayo Kanak usually pay little attention to dates, but I do remember the day I left the Okisk Wepesk. July 1st, 1867. For the birth of Canada was no celebration for us. I should have just read that date. But anyway, so it ends on Canada, the first Canada Day.
That's a cool way to end it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And so
so
now I'm
cool.
thinking like maybe, because I got mine from the library. My library carries this book and they have volume 2 as well. So
Oh, do they?
I think I think I'm gonna get volume
Oh,
2
that's
because I want to know because then the next story is, I mean, we've heard some of it, but
Mhm.
I'm assuming it's the first day of the Confederation too today.
Well,
This is
Kim
my
will tell us
assumption.
right now. So what's the rest? What's the second
That's
volume
it.
about?
It's done. She took
Oh,
it.
I'm sorry.
Oh, nice.
I was
Like-
the date was the last line of the book is one of the things I was going to bring up. I'm like, if they don't bring it up, I'm going to talk about it in my personal journal.
Yeah.
But
So
it goes
sorry.
all the way to current current times. The
guess
book,
you'll
volume
have to
2?
read volume 2, Lindsay. Get ready for some more dicks.
Oh, okay.
I'm
where does
assuming
it
so.
start?
Like it's definitely going to go through residential schools. They're already like alluding to it and stuff, right? So I don't know. Do you want me to read the last line of volume 2? See if it ends
Yeah.
with a date.
Yes. Okay. Great.
Okay, hold on.
Because maybe is there a volume 3? Is the question. Like,
Maybe
is
it
I
that
don't
ends with
the-
think
dicks.
so. I don't think so, but we'll see. Hold on. I don't know.
Oh.
Well,
It
because
doesn't
the
end with a
history's not
date.
over.
I'll tell you that much.
Well,
It
'cause the
ends with
history's
like
not-
for like an affirmation, like remember, like you are everything you need to be. You're your own medicine, basically. You are the medicine you need. And then Ikosi, I can't read with my glasses on. Ikosi Pitama.
And what does that mean?
Let me go into the glossary and tell you.
Oh, perfect.
Love the glossary.
Wait a bit.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I
Wait a
can't-
bit.
So you're all the
Okay.
medicine you need. Wait a bit. So it sounds like a comeback story to me.
Can I see the
Ooh.
book? Can I see the cover of the second one? Oh.
So it looks like a
Okay.
neighborhood, right? Like it's more
Yeah.
rural or whatever. It's
Yeah,
not even like
it's more-
old timey England. Like there's a, oh no, it's a totem pole. I'm like, there's a telephone pole. Oh no, but it is a telephone pole too, because like there's like shoes hanging from
Lines.
the wires. Can you see?
Mm.
Ah. Okay. Yeah, my library doesn't have it yet, but I will definitely read that one. Yeah.
Very cool.
It looks like there's what, I don't know what that is. It looks like there's a dinosaur on the front too.
I feel like this is one that maybe it would be good to have the audiobook and listen to the audiobook while you read
Yeah.
the actual book. Like the
Oh
print
no,
book.
this is a buffalo.
I shouldn't say actual book. I mean the print book.
Yeah, that's a great idea,
Box.
Mare. Remember back in the day when you used to get a book and you would also get a record and you would play the
Yeah.
record and it would like read the book to you?
Yes.
That
Oh
would be
my god,
perfect for these,
yes.
'cause then we could
Oh.
read see the pictures and
Yes,
hear all the
I forgot about
pronunciation.
those.
They have
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
for kids now, but they're digital. They're called like Vox books. They have them at our library, and so you can even put headphones in, and you charge them, and then it reads the book to the kids and has the like, when this sound happens, turn the page.
Yes.
Oh,
It's great.
cool.
I used to have one for ET and it used to scare me. I couldn't listen to it alone in my basement because I was
Well,
afraid
E.T.
that ET would come. And ET was
pretty
nice, but I
creepy.
was afraid of him if he
Well,
was
he was
even
creepy looking
only in
though.
my basement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's creepy looking.
I just
Okay.
want to point out something. I don't know if anyone else noticed, but when you said you thought there was a dinosaur and it was a buffalo, I just think it's extra funny because you have a Buffalo Bills hat and shirt on. And then you didn't see the buffalo.
You don't
What is this
understand.
animal?
Like,
I don't recognize
this
this animal at all.
This is the sample of the buffalo that I'm
okay.
calling a
Okay,
dinosaur.
you know what? That's fair. Seeing
it's
that,
not holding
that
a-
makes more
The
sense.
reveal is
not
on the back.
holding a
I'm like,
football,
oh, this is
so-
a buffalo that they've
No.
slaughtered.
Yeah, I was getting Triceratops vibes. So I
Totally,
get that.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I see where you're coming from.
Thank you.
You get a
I
pass.
do just
Thank
also
you.
want to say that like I really appreciate, Kim, I feel like your book choices are always very Indigenous conscious. Being Indigenous myself, like I don't go and read those kind of books, honestly. And I think that's like a fault of my own. I think I really should. So you're making me read stuff that I wouldn't read myself. So like I appreciate it, and I think it's good for our audience and just ourselves to be reading it and having these discussions. So
Thank you. For that.
appreciation. Yeah.
It was a commitment I made at the beginning because when I think about truth and reconciliation, like it feels important to me. It's something that I'm obviously in support of, but it's so gigantic and I can get lost in like, we're still, you know, a total capitalistic society. Like it's just so huge, right? So the only thing that I can do is bring it back down to like literally like, what can I do? I can try to learn more. I can do, right? And so it was something that I was like, I'm going to always choose Indigenous something focused writer, author, whatever for this podcast.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's so great and such a small, like it's the small things we do, you know, it really is. And just even learn, like we're changing our own thoughts on history, which it's
definitely
so
with this friggin'
right?
book.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Much
Well, I feel like
appreciation.
that's a good ending.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a great ending.
If you've enjoyed these video highlights, listen to the full episode on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to like and subscribe and ring that bell to be notified when new episodes are published. Find out more by going to www.bookinterrupted.com.
Never forget, every child matters.